Hey, how's everybody? I've been really ill, I've had tonsillitis and I haven't done a makeup video or anything to do with this for such a long time. I'm feeling quite nervous right now, but while I was off I found a really fascinating story which I'd like to share with you. I'm just putting my concealer here and just rubbing that in. Just realised I've got no wipes, so if it goes wrong. Anyway, so the story is about Mary Asprey. Mary Asprey was a young girl in 1817, yes, 1817, that's right. And she lived in Erdington in Birmingham. She worked for her uncle. She was a housekeeper. She was a very beautiful girl, and she was very excited that on May the 26th, there was going to be a big Whitsun party at a pub called 3 Tons, also known as the Tyburn pub. This is in Birmingham. So she arranged with her friend Hannah Cox that she would finish work, because she worked for her uncle, and she would go to Hannah's, leave her work clothes there and go to this party. She'd already picked up a dress, I think, from her mother's, I want to say. Anyway, so she picked up this dress, she went to Hannah Cox, and her and Hannah Cox went off to this party that they were really looking forward to. And when they got to the party, there was also, at the party was a gentleman by the name of Abraham Thornton, and he came from a nearby place called Castle Bromwich, which if you're in the Midlands of England you'll know where that is. Anyway, it wasn't too far from where they were, and he told his friends, he told somebody, well I don't know if it's a friend, but he told someone that he'd slept with Mary Ashford's sister 3 times, and that if he didn't sleep with Mary Ashford he would die. He sounds weird already. You know, and also, if he had slept with Mary Ashford, it doesn't make sense why Mary Ashford would find him so interesting, which she did, because she spent most of the night talking to him until 11 o'clock when Hannah Cox said, it's time to go, because they both had work, I guess, in the morning. And so anyway, so they started to walk home, and he was walking with Mary the whole time, like completely enamoured with her, he would, you know, and Hannah Cox was trailing behind like the third wheel, as it were. Anyway, when they got back to, if you see, I've just put a bit of concealer like this, light bulb concealer. This gets rid of any double chins or anything. It's quite a good little tip. I think it's from JLo actually. I watch all these makeup videos. Anyway, and so they were walking. They walked together, and when they got nearing Hannah Cox's house, Mary suddenly had a change of plan. She said, I'm not going to come there. My granddad lives nearer to where I work. I'm going to go to my granddad's house. Now, whether this meant she was naively wanting to spend time alone with Thornton, not expecting anything sexual to happen. Remember, this girl, she's very beautiful. She's 20 years old and was discovered to be a virgin. So she's obviously, she could have been naive, or maybe she wanted to sleep with him. Who knows? But it's definitely what he wanted. Anyway, so she went off somewhere with Thornton. A labourer saw Thornton with a young lady, but her head was down about 2:45 a.m. of the morning of the 27th of May. But couldn't say whether that was Mary or not. So Mary then returned at 4 o'clock. Hannah Cox was woken up by Mary rummaging about in the bedroom, looking for her work clothes, saying, I've got to go because my uncle needs to go to market. I need to get to my uncle's. So Hannah Cox thought nothing more of it, and Mary got ready and off she went, presumably to her uncle's house so they could go to market. But Thornton, who knows whether he was laying in wait for her or not, because there was a field that she would have had to pass, and he could have been laying in wait in that field. But basically, when she, at 6 a.m, which was the next time anyone found anything to do with Mary, they found a shoe with blood all over it. And so this was another labourer. He gave up the alarm, and then some other people came with a rake, and they raked out the water pit where her shoe was near, and they found her body. And anyway, so the coroner, I guess the post-mortem, said that she had been raped. And people remembered her from the party. I mean, she was very beautiful. I mean, people remembered, and they remembered that she was with Thornton. So they went straight over to Thornton's and they asked him whether he slept with her, which he said yes, but he said it was consensual, and they arrested him. Anyway, there was blood stains on his undergarments. So, you know, they thought to themselves, well, you know, but he still saw blind. There was no way that he'd done this heinous crime to Mary. So he was actually acquitted for it. So it went to court and he was acquitted. Well, there was outrage. The Times newspaper reported it. There was outrage. You know, everyone thought it was him. And so it was actually her brother, William Ashbury, who did a writ. I think it's called a writ. And then they had to retry Abraham Thornton. And when they retried Abraham Thornton the second time, he challenged William Ashbury to a duel. But William was of small stature and there was no way. He was no match for Thornton. So it was, because he wasn't, he got off of it again. So he was free. So who knows? That's such a bizarre case. Now you'd think, oh, well, that's bizarre enough in itself. But there was more to this because in 1974, in the same place, it was Piper Hayes Hall and Grounds, was a young girl who was very religious, who worked, it was now a children's home, and she worked there, Barbara, and she was, as I said, very religious, and she went out for the night dancing, just like Mary, and she was found 120 yards away from Mary. She was also a virgin, and also menstruating, which Mary was also menstruating, and it was on the same day they were found, which was the 27th of May, 157 years apart, and this time it wasn't the boyfriend that was they looked for, it was her co-worker, and his surname was Thornton, strangely enough. And Mary and this girl both had the same birthdays. Weird. And on top of that, Mary and this girl both said, Mary to Hannah Cox's mother and Barbara to her co-workers, that they knew that that week something bad was going to happen. They just knew it. And they were both killed in Piper Hayes Park, I want to say, near the hall there. And it is bizarre, the similarities. You know, both surnames of the men were Thornton. Both the girls are the same age with the same birthday, 157 years apart on the same day. They've both been out dancing with their friends. And, you know, it was so similar. Bizarre. So I then decided, was this killing, murder, just a coincidence? Or was there something going on? So I started to look up Piper Hayes Hall and Piper Hayes Park, and in the 13th century it was actually a plague pit. So you know, there was a Black Death, so a lot of people from the plague were buried there, so they weren't, you know, that wasn't a very nice thing. Also, the other thing was the history of the actual hall itself. It was in the, I want to say, in the 16th century. There was a lady called Dorothy Arden who was related to William Shakespeare, and she married into the Bagot family, and she became, you know, a Bagot, and her husband loved her so much that he actually made the hall for her, and that was in the 16th century. I also found out that they had 13 gables there, and these 13 gables was assigned to the Catholics, that it was a safe haven for them so that they could come there. There was also tunnels, allegedly, underneath the building that the Catholic priests could escape, you know, through the tunnels. So that's also quite interesting. On top, as well, which I've also found, because I found it all interesting actually, it was a convalescent home, I do believe, for the First and Second World War soldiers when they came back. And it was also I've lost my stuff as usual. It was also I'm going to put some blusher and stuff on. So this little tip, you do like a light bulb and round. Apparently this is what JLo does. It does look good. I wanted to do my lipstick as well. And the thing was, after that, in 1920, Birmingham, they sold it to, in the 18th century, they sold a lot of the land off for it to become for the sewage place. I can't remember the name of it now. But yeah, so, and then it was also sold again to Birmingham City Council in 1920, but it'd been in the Bagshot, is it Bagshot? Yeah, Baggots, sorry, Baggots family for 250 years. When it was a children's home, there was servants' bells used to ring, and they'd all been disconnected. So that was weird. And then the story of Lady Bagot is quite interesting too. Apparently Lady Bagot, I'm not sure which Lady Bagot it was, or whether it was the same one or a different one, because obviously they had it 250 years, so there's been a lot of Lady Bagots, so I need to find out which one it is. Maybe you can enlighten me, I don't know, but she fell in love with the butler, and they were having a secret, passionate affair, and they got found out. And so the last liaison they had, the butler was found hanging from the ceiling, and she was dead, apparently, from a small dagger that she'd stabbed herself, or somebody had stabbed her in the heart with. I don't know who, I wasn't there. But that was bizarre. And the children also reported a grey lady smiling at them when it was a children's home, and sort of being above them kind of thing. And sometimes when they were sick, someone used to like stroke their hair, and they would think that it was one of the workers that was there that was doing all that. But in fact, none of the workers had ever been anywhere near where the kids were at that time when they said it was happening. So that was also bizarre. I just find the whole thing fascinating. And then I found out a bit more. So there's also a lady in yellow who's meant to waft across the bowling green, and various other sightings. There's the kids used to say there was a man in a black cape that used to chase them across the the grounds when they were coming home. So that was also pretty scary. So it sounds to me like it's quite haunted, and it's quite a lot of supernatural activity going on around there. And also, the other thing that is bizarre for me is in 2014, just got to do my mascara, 2014, this big company, I want to say Bromfield or something like that, bought it from the council and was going to turn it into a spa luxury hotel. They never asked the council for further planning permission. And it's never been built. And the latest article I could find was from 2021. And in this article in 2021, it said that the man who was in charge of, you know, people buying the hall and all that stuff, who they went to, surname was Forrester, which was Barbara was murdered, who worked in the children's home, surname. Bizarre again. I doubt he's any relation, but it is weird that all these names and dates are, you know, corresponding with each other. What else can I tell you about it? Yeah, so apparently in 2021, someone else has bought or thinking of buying it or whatever. But as yet, there's been no, I couldn't find any evidence of this. I did look to see if I could see who'd bought it or whatever. But I think it'd be such a shame with something with that amount of history being turned into a hotel. You know, I think it's part of, you know, our British history, and like somebody should, you know, maybe turn it into, you know, I would like to go and see it. I don't know if anyone's ever been inside it. I don't even know if it's ever been open to the public. But I mean, I know in my area we've got Blenheim Palace, which obviously has been turned into a place for, you know, when people come, you know, it's a beautiful place, beautiful grounds, and people like to go there. So maybe they could do something like that, you know, turn it into a, you know, something for people to go and have a look at, because there's so much history with this place. And I don't understand why they're selling it off to somebody who's just going to make some boring old hotel. I mean, God, they're two a penny, aren't they, really, you know? It would be nice if it could be kind of restored, and, you know, the stories that are attached to it could be told. I mean, it's a really interesting place. And, you know, we don't really want to lose that history. So that's my story for today. I'm getting better. And I don't normally have that much time to look at all these stories and things like that, but I totally enjoyed that and finding all that stuff out. And if you have any knowledge about this, what I've been talking about today, about the hall, or about the family and the Catholics and, you know, any of the murders, Mary Ashford, or was it Mary Ashford? Oh God, I swear to God, I'm losing my mind sometimes. Or Barbara Forrester, or, you know, who's buying the place. I'd be really interested, because I've found this absolutely fascinating. And when you're really sick, you've got time to start thinking about things. I mean, did Abraham Thornton kill Mary Ashford, and who really killed Barbara Forrester, and is that her relation with the council, and what happened, why they didn't buy the hotel, and are all these ghost stories true, and has anybody else experienced anything there? Just as a side note, I have a friend who had something to do with Erdington and recently, and I definitely think there's something there, without a doubt. There's something supernatural going on in Erdington, I think, around the Piper Hayes Park and the Piper Hayes Hall, because there's too much gone on there. And with that, I will leave you. I've done my makeup. Have a good evening.